What a fast today as we saw this crumbling of the Albanese government's global warming policies. So much so that people in New South Wales were told today, don't wash your clothes, no dishwashers either when you get home. And yet the day it started so positively for Chris Bowen, the Federal Energy and Climate Change Minister. He even went out and boasted to journalists that his global warming plans were working beautifully. Look at the cuts it made to our emissions.
We're on track for 43% emissions reduction, 42.6 emissions reduction. That's real progress. That's not achieved by protesting. That's achieved by real policies put in place by this government.
Oh, goody, has cut our emissions. But no one asked, at what cost, Minister, and for what gain? These are absolutely critical questions because in New South Wales today, residents were already paying a huge price for this mad gamble of destroying the coal-fired system that worked with an unreliable wind and solar power system and not enough of it or of anything else. Now, the state is so short of electricity today, a hot day in Sydney, lots of aircon, that the Premier was begging them not to clean their clothes or dishes when they got home from work. All those solar panels you see that we've spent billions putting up weren't doing the job.
Solar production in the energy market starts to come off from 3 p.m. at exactly the same time as people return home from work. So if you can not run your pool filter, not run your dishwasher, not run your washing machine this afternoon between 3 and 8, you'll help the grid.
And the Premier was right. At 3:30 today, in the middle of a hot day, 39 degrees in some suburbs, solar power was providing just 11% of the state's power. And all those ugly wind towers we've wasted more than billions on, they were providing just 7%. Good old coal still supplied half the state's electricity, and gas, another fossil fuel, 12%. And this shortage, remember, would have been even worse had the New South Wales government not upset the Greens and paid for the giant Eraring coal-fired power station to stay open for just a couple more years. What'll happen after that? But of course, you know, the Premier had his excuses. One of them was dumb and the other an admission.
Two things are happening. The climate's changing and we're obviously in a transition when it comes to energy.
Now, climate change, that's now a politician's get out of jail card. Don't blame me, blame it on climate change. Seriously, blaming climate change for Sydney having a 39-degree day in the last week of November, that's not climate change, that's Australia. We have hot days. And if we can't keep up with this particular hot day, you imagine a 40-plus day later this summer with everyone coming home to watch cricket in the aircon. But the other half of what the Premier said, obviously we're in a transition when it comes to energy, is right. We are in a transition from the coal-fired electricity system that worked to this green one which doesn't. Now, it is true some generators were down for maintenance, scheduled maintenance or for repairs. This transition to green power actually means there's so little incentive to invest in expensive upgrades of coal-fired generators, you're probably going to get a lot more of that. But what clown planned a transition that leaves us with not enough electricity now? Well, speaking of clowns, here's Chris Bowen again, replying to a zinger of a question today from the opposition's energy spokesman, Ted O'Brien.
The Australian energy market operator is right now scrambling to avoid blackouts by cutting deals with factories to temporarily shut down. And the New South Wales Premier is urging residents, I quote, not to run your dishwasher, not to run your washing machine this afternoon. Prime Minister, is this what Labor's plan for, I quote, a renewable energy superpower really will look like?
Now, as the House is aware, New South Wales is undergoing a lengthy and severe heatwave.
A heatwave in Australia? Who'd have ever thought? Where do these guys think they live? You know, Siberia? It's incredible, isn't it, that Australians actually, under this Chris Bowen, they now pay around $450 a year more for your electricity, yet you can't now count on the power staying on. An energy advisor, Energy Quest, it predicts that electricity and gas shortages will hit even harder in 2026. It says supply in winter will then meet only 70% of demand in New South Wales and ACT. In Victoria, there simply won't be enough gas. And what does all this cost us? These green schemes that leave us with unreliable electricity? It's not just the higher power prices. Bowen, in one press release last year, listed more than $60 billion of promised climate subsidies, grants, loans, handouts, and has promised billions more since then. Then add all the global warming schemes of the states, of councils, of businesses that'll get charged back to you. It's got to be costing you much more than $10 billion a year. That's lowballing it, to save the planet. But that raises the other critical question Bowen wasn't asked today. For all this pain, Minister, what is the gain? By how much will all these billions we're spending actually lower the world's temperature? Not one Prime Minister has ever told us, because as former Chief Scientist Alan Finkel famously admitted, we're actually too small to make any real difference at all. And should we even try to be changing things? Because you look at the evidence. We're actually getting fewer cyclones now. We're getting more rain overall, getting bigger crops. So is this really a climate crisis that we must spend billions of dollars pretending to stop? One day we're going to wake up and wonder how we devastated our power system without asking what it would cost or what it would achieve. And then we'll remember Chris Bowen, all right? The man who boasted, this is progress.